Hello, my friends. It's Manny Rogers. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. In today's episode, we got a doozy for you. You've probably heard me talk about this if you do follow my channel any amount of time. The Alex Murdaugh case in South Carolina. The attorney who hired someone to kill him so that his son, the only living son, can get a life insurance inheritance from that death. Didn't quite work out the way he planned, and we're gonna dive into that. And this is the story of the Alex Murdaugh case. Alex Murdaugh, that gentleman, tall, far right. And this is a doozy of a story. And in many ways, a sad, sad story. And so here we have it. This is his family that you see on the screen. Out of those four, two are still with us. Two are still living. One's in jail. And two of them are two of the five I will be diving into. And this is a crazy, crazy case. It seems to continue to be developing. And it continues to bring stuff to light about how this Alex Murdaugh, not a good guy. Not a good guy at all. And I'm going to share these five with you, but remind you, he's not going to court for this. Right now, he's in jail for trying to orchestrate his own killing. But there's a lot that's surrounding him as, did he do this? Man, it is a doozy. And so that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. Okay, so thank you for joining me. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back in 10 seconds. Welcome back, my friends. Thank you for being here with me. So let's go ahead and dive into it. I think I've talked long enough, and I'm sure you probably agree, don't you, if you are following along with this. So this is the case of Alex Murdaugh, and there are 5 deaths with a connection to this South Carolina attorney and his family. And he is completely under investigation in multiple ways. And it's crazy because it's continuously developing. And so this has been called the Murdaugh mysteries because there is so much connection around this prominent and powerful local attorney in South Carolina. And so we start with the death of his family. And so Alex Murdaugh, again, the gentleman in the top right that I showed you earlier, he is accused of multiple things. Because of one thing happening, it led to so many more things happening. And so this is where it gets really weird in many ways. See, the Murdaughs, they built an empire over 3 generations deep when they started a law firm. And so they began over a century ago when they started the law firm. And so now you got 3 generations of Murdaugh men also who held public office. They held chief prosecutor, solicitor. And so it's amazing what has went on down the road. And so obviously Alex, he inherited that red hair and, and he has very little of the talent like the rest of his family. He did inherit the last name. He did inherit the red hair, but he didn't inherit much of that talent from those generations. And so even when he was forced to resign from the family law firm because he just did things in an unethical way. See, here's the thing. This family had so much power, they actually believed they were untouchable. They actually believed they were untouchable. And that's what happens with a lot of people, right? They think they got so much power and no one can touch them. They believe that money can buy their way out of everything. But there's always that something that catches up to you if you're really a bad person. If you're a bad person, the stuff will catch up to you. There's a difference between making mistakes and learning from your mistakes. When you continue and continue and continue to burn your own bridges, that stuff will bite you and bite you hard. And that's exactly where we're at now. Now he's in jail because he's done everything wrong. Literally everything wrong. And so Alex, he worked as a volunteer prosecutor in the law office. But primarily, he made a really good living in the family law firm. And he married his college sweetheart, Maggie. Maggie, that is her right there. He married her college sweetheart, and they had 2 sons. As you can see, Buster on the far left of the mom, or should I say on her right, your left, and Paul, the shorter of the 2, on her left shoulder. And they lived a really good life. They have a 1,700-acre estate and 2 private islands. So you can tell they were very well off as powerful third generation law firm attorneys. And so now they have all these generations of political power, political support, and contacts. They have so many popular contacts. And guess what? With that type of access, what comes with that? Power. And Alex took it a little too far. And to be honest with you, in some of the ways, so did Paul. And we're going to learn about that on what has led to his death. We don't really know. That's still under investigation. But it is true. And so here they are, a powerful legal family in this little tiny town of South Carolina. And this is a little community. It's not a violent community or anything like that. But in September, when even more started coming out, it looked like someone was out there to challenge that power. And that's where it looked like someone was trying to attempt to take Alex Murdaugh's life. And according to Alex, he told investigators he was changing a flat tire on a rural road when a person in a pickup truck passed by. And he asked Alex, "Hey, are you having car trouble?" And then shot him in the head. This was according to Alex. And Alex Murdaugh, when he calls 911, he says, "When I turned my back, they tried to shoot me. They shot me." Those were his exact words. When he called 911. After that 911 call, you see him in handcuffs here? That's because his lies started catching up with him. 12 days later, after he was shot on this rural road by someone who just pulled up in a truck, he appears in court for trying to plan his own death by conspiring with Curtis Smith to shoot him. Now, Curtis Smith, longtime friend. And so, according to 48 Hours contributor Nikki Batista, if I'm pronouncing that right, she asks Curtis, "Did you shoot Alex Murdaugh?" And he says no. He says no. Asks him, "When did you first meet Alex?" He says, "About 35 years ago." Now, Curtis Smith, he was their handyman. And he says he's also a distant cousin of Alex. And he said he only got to know Alex well a few years back. And he started doing odd jobs for the family. And that's how he started getting closer. And they talked on the phone a lot, chatting back and forth about different things. And so, you know, he felt like Alex was like a brother to him. At least he thought he was a brother to him. And obviously that didn't quite work out too well, because it's not working out too well for them. Now, for some reason though, you know, even though they got evidence pointing to him, he says he didn't do anything. He says he didn't do anything. So you can see Alex here, and you can see Curtis Smith with the goatee and the bandage or the mask on under his chin when he was checked into the jailbait motel. Wait, that's not the right way to put it. When he was checked into the jailhouse motel. How about that? I don't know. Trying to just, you know, trying to liven this ugly story up a little bit, basically. And so now you have a visual picture of who he is. That is him, so you can take a better look. Now, Curtis Smith, he's now on bond, and he's facing 5 charges in the shooting of Alex. 5 charges. And, you know, things like this, you got to understand, it's hard to try to get away with this stuff. And I say this not because I've ever tried anything too stupid. I'm not that dumb. But I watch enough crime shows. Granted, some people may get away with it. I don't know. There are some unsolved stories out there, right? Missing purses, cold cases. Those things do exist. So it also tells me that some people do get away with it. Right? I mean, that would lead me to believe that. If these cases are going way so cold, I would think that maybe people are getting away with it then. That would make sense to me. I don't know. But when did this all start coming to fruition? And we're going to get into there. But Smith is now on bond and facing 5 felony charges in the shooting of Alex Murdaugh, because Alex tried to have himself killed so that his only surviving son would get the life insurance. And so in this particular case, Alex will face 3 charges in the shooting, but he's got several ongoing investigations and lawsuits looming. Many wonder when and how steep this fall from grace will end, because it just started because of a boat crash, and we're going to get into that. It just started because of that, and then everything came crashing down. So it all started back in February of 2019. 911 call. You can hear yelling and screaming in the background. 911 dispatcher asks, 911, what's your emergency? Connor Cook, that name will come up again. He talks to the 911. He says, we're in a boat crash on Arthur's Creek. And this boat crash, this is when things really began unraveling for the Murdaugh family, where you can see the power they believed they had. It's amazing. It's amazing. So about 2:20 in the morning, 2:20 in the morning, 6 young underage friends who had been partying crashed a boat into a bridge. One of those people on there was 19-year-old Paul Murdaugh. And I mentioned Murdaugh earlier in the picture. And another person on that boat was 19-year-old Mallory Beach, who disappeared that morning. And so Connor Cook, talking to the 911, he says, there's 6 of us and 1 is missing. 911 dispatcher asks, who's missing? Connor says, a female, Mallory Beach, is missing. She's in the water. And so, you know, Mallory, young girl, 19 years old, not able to be drinking either. Again, I'm not trying to judge because I was young at one time as well. I'm not going to say I'd never had alcohol. Never got drunk when I was young, that's for sure. For some reason, I waited. I was in college and I still didn't like it. But it didn't stop me from doing it in the future again. So Mallory, according to her aunt, Lynn Rivas, wonderful girl, fun-loving, happy girl. Everybody loved her. Everybody loved her, and I believe she was dating one of the guys on the boat. It might have been Connor. And so her aunt, Lynn Rivas, and Mallory, they were very close. They were extremely close. And, you know, Lynn, she described she always got a huge hello. She always got a big hug and a hug goodbye when she saw her, a hug goodbye when she left. And the last thing she told her aunt, Lynn, was she loved her. And so this fatal night began 8 hours earlier at the Murdaughs family river home on a private island. Why didn't they just stay there? I don't know. And so the Paul Murdaugh, at that time, he's 19 years old. He gathered 5 friends for a night of partying, you know, doing what kids do, I guess. And so all of them were underage. And so you got Connor Cook, Connor's cousin Anthony Cook, Anthony's girlfriend, that was Anthony's girlfriend, Mallory Beach. All were underage, all were drinking alcohol, and a lot of alcohol. And so just before they gathered to get together, Paul used the ID of his brother Buster, who is over 21 but was not there. Paul used Buster's ID to get beer at a convenience store. And so you can see here, right there, that is Paul with beer up in his hand, saying, you know, excited they got their beer to go party. And there goes the boat attached to the pickup truck. And so they're ready to go party it up and have a great time. So they thought, probably fun for a little while, until you get reckless and stupid. That's exactly what happened here. Young kids getting reckless and stupid. Again, sometimes you believe you have so much power that you're unstoppable. And then you take all these risks, and then it costs a life, just like this one. And that's where this story really starts to unravel for Alex Murdaugh. And so they go to the private island, you know, partying it up, celebrating because they got the beer and they used the older brother's ID, you know. So after they gathering at the river home, they boarded the family boat and took off. And so this is where they went to go and party. And so, they would find that using this garment, the investigators would tracking the data of what happened through this Garmin's navigation center to create a timeline of events on what led to this. And so around 8 p.m., the group arrived at the party at a house on the river of their private island. And just after midnight, 6 of them boarded the boat and headed toward downtown Beaufort. Beaufort. Let's say Beaufort. And so Paul and Connor decided to go into a bar for a drink. And so, and he was very persistent about going up to Luther's, which is the name of it, and getting a shot. Like they wanted to, hey, let's go get that shot. Let's just go in, get a shot, then we leave. I'm summing it up. And so, you know, so one of the passengers in the vehicle of the group, you know, Miley told police in the interview that the rest of them didn't want Paul to go in. They didn't want him to go. And so it's like they were describing, and I was watching this interview, I was watching this documentary or something like that. And it's like they said that when Paul gets drunk, he's a completely different person. Completely different person when he gets drunk, which is also what led to a lot of this problems. Literally, when he gets drunk, he gets angry. He wants to fight. And so apparently they went in, pounded a couple shots, and somewhere around 1:30 in the morning, you can see some video footage of them leaving the boat dock. And so, here you go. So you can see them leaving the boat dock. And they're leaving. It appeared as if a couple of them were very intoxicated. They had been drinking for a number of hours. They have been drinking. You know, and it was like, you look at this and you're like, you look at this, it's kind of a sad moment. You know, here we are. That's Mallory there and her boyfriend. And, you know, this is probably the last time anyone captured them alive. Literally. Probably the last time any pictures or anything that really saw them alive. And so around 1:15 in the morning, they took off on the boat again. Like, I mean, this is where it's like they were reckless, they were careless, they were not being careful about anything they were doing. Nothing. And so here they are on the boat. Paul is just driving, doing a bunch of donuts. You know, donuts on the boat, just like they do in the cars sometimes. And so Connor starts driving a little bit. And then Paul, he stops Connor and he's like, no, this is my boat. Let me drive. Now, Connor felt like he can handle it a little more. But of course, again, Paul being drunk and being belligerent and an angry drunk, he became a control freak again. So Miley, who was on the boat, and so Miley says, I saw the bridge coming. And in the 911 call, Connor says, what bridge is, Paul, what bridge is this? Like talking back to Paul, what bridge is this? And so the first responders dash cam video captured the mayhem. Literally. So you had one officer who's like, all right, where's everybody at? And, you know, at the bridge, at the bottom of the bridge, all right, we're still missing one. What's her name? Mallory Beach. And everyone was accounted for except Mallory. Except Mallory. And, you know, of course, everyone's crying, scared, shocked. They're completely worried about their friend Mallory. They don't know where Mallory's at. They see 5 of us, but where's Mallory? She's still in the water. She's still in the water after you crashed the boat. And so Paul Murdaugh, he wasn't saying much. But Anthony Cook, Mallory's boyfriend, Anthony Cook, Mallory's boyfriend, he was talking. And this is where a little more starts coming out. And so after a deputy got Anthony into the patrol car, Paul Murdaugh came into sight. And Anthony's upset. He is pissed off after what just happened because of Paul Murdaugh's drunkenness, selfishness, and you can hear him. And so when he was walking up from where the boat was, Anthony Cook, you can hear him saying to the Deputy Domino, that's his name, Deputy Domino, get that effer there away from me, because he's ticked at Paul. And so Deputy Domino, he tried to rush through me to get to Paul. That's what deputy says. Anthony tried to rush through the deputy to get to Paul. He was so upset. And the thing about Paul was actually still kind of smiling. You see what I mean? He kind of had a smirk on his face, like this is no big deal. So here it is, Mallory Beach, Anthony Cook's girlfriend, missing in the water. And here Paul is smiling while Anthony's girlfriend's missing in the water. You best believe anyone would be upset if they saw that. Wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say that? That's where it gets a little shaky. Seriously. And of course, Anthony Cook says to Paul, why are you effing smiling like it's effing funny? My effing girlfriend's gone, bro. He's upset. And then they start having a little discrepancies. But Anthony Cook definitively identified the person he said was driving the boat. And you can see it on the police dash cam video. Anthony Cook says, do y'all know Alex Murdaugh? See where I'm going with this? And Deputy Domino says, yeah, I know that name. And Anthony Cook says, that's his son. Paul Murdaugh is his son. That's him driving the boat. And then he says, good luck. Anthony Cook says, good luck. And that's when he indicated to Deputy Domino, he can't be touched. He comes from a powerful family. And, they're like, you're talking about Alex Murdaugh's son? Good luck. Because you can't touch him. You can't touch him, right? They believe that this family is so powerful, you can't touch him. But this boat crash is what starts bringing Alex down. And so, February 24, 2019, Lynn Rivas, remember Mallory's aunt, she says she got a phone call about 5 o'clock that morning. Her sister was calling to tell her that Mallory was lost. She had been in a boat crash and they couldn't find her. And they're freaking out now. They're freaking out. So Mallory had already been missing for 3 hours. 3 hours. 3 hours. And so that's when her family learned the news, but not from the police. One of her cousins, Mallory's aunt's cousin, called her. You know, they called the mom to say, hey, did you know about this boat crash that Mallory's been in? They didn't know. So here they were finding out firsthand, and it wasn't from the police. That alone is a little weird. And they went looking, they searched, the search went on for days. And there were people from other states that came and they wanted to help. On the 8th day of looking for Mallory, two volunteers, two brothers, they found Mallory's body about 5 miles down the river from the crash site. So it floated 5 miles. And Lynn, the aunt, she was at home and someone called and said, hey, they found her. And of course, she was upset. Her niece, who they were very close with, they found her dead. And that's where it's so sad. And you knew Mallory had so many friends, hundreds of people attended that funeral. It took like 4 hours to greet everybody. Rest in peace, Mallory Beach. And so, according to Revis, even the Murdaughs were there. The Murdaughs, Alex Murdaugh. I don't know how to pronounce it. It sounds pretty familiar. Still close to murder, unfortunately. You know, and so weeks after that, they're just waiting. They're just waiting for, is someone going to make an arrest? Is there going to be an admission of guilt or responsibility? And again, this is where stuff starts really falling apart for Alex. And so a month after the crash, afraid that they may never learn what happened to Mallory, they filed a wrongful death suit against members of the Murdaugh family. And so, according to them, Paul was allegedly acting rash and reckless. Yes, they were. They were. Those kids they begged Paul to stop. They begged him. Just let us out. And he refused. He refused. He was going really fast in the boat, wasn't slowing down or anything. And so, and as you got it, like, of course, that's just bad on its own. That's just bad on its own. And so in a deposition, Paul Murdaugh's then girlfriend Morgan, she said, Paul and I got into an argument because I didn't take his side. Because he was wrong. It's good that somebody's willing to step up, you know. And Paul, being a Murdaugh, I guess, he slapped her and spit on her because she didn't take his side. And so, he even kept leaving the wheel of the boat to go fight with her. So now, and after he's done fighting with her, he goes back and starts driving the boat again. That's where it gets pretty ugly. And so at 2:20 in the morning, that Garmin, the Garmin data tracker that they were using, it recorded that the boat was slowing down and then speeding up. Seconds later, the Garmin shows the boat coming to an abrupt stop when it struck a piling over at the Archers Creek Bridge. I mean, you knew that people were going to go flying then. And so in his deposition, Connor Cook said that the morning of the crash, he held back from telling investigators that Paul was driving the boat because he was afraid. He was afraid of Paul. While at the hospital being treated for a broken jaw, he says he was told by Alex Murdaugh that he didn't need to tell anyone he was driving. So you see how these powerful attorneys are already trying to cover the tracks and get Paul away from driving because they knew he was going to be in trouble. They knew he was going to be in trouble. And so Alex the dad, he's going from room to room to try to communicate with the other boat crash passengers and get them all on the same page. And even a hospital security guard said he overheard Alex say, "She's gone, don't worry." That's, I mean, look at the extent they would go to. The extent that Alex would go to try to protect his son. So they were still trying to, who is driving the boat? Who is driving the boat, right? You know, right away. Now, Anthony Cook, he said Paul was driving the boat. So, but they wanted to get everyone's side, and that's where they're trying to match up all the stories, I think, as well, right? So, right out of the gate, Alex Murdaugh was like, how can we get Paul out of this, basically? How can we get Paul out of this? So that's where it's like, And you know what's even worse? Alex tried to frame Connor Cook as the driver of the boat, not Paul. See what power does? Or makes you believe you're super powerful? And so they're trying to create a cloud of confusion so that they can say, can you prove who was driving the boat? So it's amazing what they would do. And at the hospital, Paul's blood alcohol level was tested by doctors treating him. And this was several hours after the crash. He was 3 times over the legal limit. And he was still allegedly acting out. Still acting out. And we're talking about hours later after the crash. He was belligerent with the nurse's staff. That's what alcohol will do to you. He was just being loud and he was being a troublemaker. And, you know, many felt that Paul Murdaugh was not treated like a suspect in a crime. And he was the suspect in this crime. But he wasn't treated like that. They started thinking, man, this guy may not be charged. It was taking so long. You know? They didn't think that they would see that day. And then for it to happen on her birthday. Nearly 2 months after the boat crash, on what would have been Mallory's 20th birthday, Paul Murdaugh was charged with 3 felony counts, including boating under the influence of alcohol or drugs and causing the death of Mallory Beach. He pleaded not guilty. And so, you know, this is where it gets of course he's not going to fess up. They're already trying to freaking cover their tracks and get him out of being the one being blamed for it. So, of course, he gets handcuffed. He gets fingerprinted. He gets formally charged. And here his mugshot. That's his mugshot right there. And so, as you can see, this is him. He looks just like Alex, right? They look so much alike. And so, and they did formally arrest him. They fingerprinted him and they were waved away. Like, we don't need that, you know. So he was never handcuffed. And you can see, well, you can't really see it in this photo, but he was wearing his street clothes. Now, normally they put you in a jumpsuit and you take your picture like that. So he never even spent a day in jail. Bond was set at $50,000, and of course for them that's a drop in a bucket. And so Paul continued to live his lifestyle like he always did. It was like it didn't faze him. It literally was like it didn't faze him. And so, you know, when you think about that, it's like, I forget that one case that was recently, the kid got away with a DUI, or he killed someone in a drunken belligerent stage while he was driving and being reckless. And I don't remember the whole case on it, but it's like some syndrome, like you were raised so privileged you don't know what's right from wrong. Sometimes it's a good thing. It's not always a good thing to be wealthy. It's not always a good thing to be wealthy. You know, so when the officer started talking to him, according to the dash cam video, you know, the officer says, "How you doing, sir?" Paul says, "Good, sir." About a year later, Paul got a speeding ticket while towing a boat. And so the officer says, "I pulled you over. You were booking it. I got you at 78. Paul says, 78? Officer says, yes. I mean, you would think he would have learned, but it doesn't sound like he learned. So 2 years later, there was still not a trial date set. And so on June 7th of 2021, Alex Murdaugh, notice Alex Murdaugh's name again, he called police and said he found his wife and son Paul shot dead. That's right. So here we have it now. So we talked about Mallory being the first. The next two, the mom and the son Paul. And Alex Murdaugh calls and he says, I found my wife and my son dead. Maggie and Paul were found dead. And so Maggie is the wife's name. And so June 7th, as Paul Murdaugh was awaiting trial in the death of Mallory Beach, a gunfire erupted on the Murdaugh family estate. And so Alex is the one that called it in, that he found them. So he calls it in about 10:07 p.m. and he sounds panicky. And he says he just arrived home to find his wife of nearly 28 years, Maggie, and their son shot. And the 911 dispatcher says, is he moving at all? Your son. I know you said she was shot, but what about your son? Alex says, nobody. They're not. Neither one of them moving. And so first responders, they rush out there and, you know, they're on there, but it's too late. Maggie and Paul were dead. And this is where it's like, how does this happen? Right? You never have any of this crime. This is like these communities out there were well known to be safe, quiet, and here you have started having all this drama around the Murdaughs. And so, you know, this was where the family spent their free time hunting and enjoying the outdoors. And here we have it. Maggie and Paul were killed in this estate and one of their other islands. And so what's interesting is over here, this is where this location, this family house, this is where they were always working on their shooting skills. That's weird on its own, wouldn't you say? And so now, here they have it, this ugly, gruesome crime scene. And so, of course, the community is all in shock. Like, what the heck is going on? A lot of people know them, so there was a lot of grief from a lot of people. And even Mallory's Aunt Lynn was one of those people. She even said, the thought of the horror that they went through, I cried for them. Even though Paul's kind of responsible for her niece's death, you know, but they're like, who would want to kill a mother and son? Who would want to do that, right? And those type of things do not happen in this little community. And so, of course, this becomes national and international news. Like, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's talking about it. And so the coroner, he says that, they were killed about 9 and 9:30 p.m. And they were found fairly close to one another on the ground near the dog kennels. So they were even found near each other. And so, they had dog kennels because Maggie was a dog lover. She spent a lot of time at the kennels with the hunting dogs. And so Maggie was killed with some type of automatic rifle, like an AR-15 of some sort. They're not really too sure. And Paul was killed with a shotgun. And they were both shot multiple times. Now, for it to be two different guns, would have to be two different people. That's odd on its own. So it's not 100% sure what weapons were used. Again, this is still under investigation. And so, and plus, of course, the guns weren't there. And so, of course, you'll always have some theories. But people are starting to think Alex Murdaugh has something to do with it. And another theory, of course, you probably already thought about this, was that could it be related to the boat crash? But then why would you kill the mom? Some think that somebody wanted justice, but they didn't think they would get it in the courts in relation to the boat crash. That would make sense. But why kill the mother? So, Alex says he had an airtight alibi. Of course, he's a lawyer, so he's already going to probably think about all this. If he did have something to do, I'm not saying he did. There's more to come out in this. But according to him, he was at the hospital visiting his sick father when the shootings took place. But alibis can be deceiving, And so we don't really know. But at the same time, sometimes when whoever's behind the trigger is not always the one who's responsible for it in the first place, right? Alex could have hired somebody. He could have hired a hitman or something. We've seen that in the past. If you watch true crime stories, my gosh, that happens quite a bit. Literally. And so, but that's what it is. But some are asking if Alex hired the man now accused of shooting him, Curtis Smith. Now, Curtis says no. Curtis says, no, I have nothing to do with it. When asked, did you kill Maggie and Paul? He says, no. Did Alex kill his wife and son? The family attorney says no. Does he have any idea who? The family attorney says no. So, But recent reports about the Murdaughs' marriage have raised questions about a possible motive. According to People magazine, which cited an unnamed law enforcement sources, claimed that Maggie and Alex did not have a good relationship and they were going to get a divorce. And she was consulting with an out-of-town attorney. I would think that could be verified, right? And so, but according to the Murdaugh's attorney, he says there was no problem between them. He said there was no problem. And their attorney was with him for almost 2 years. He says there was no problems. Always affectionate, always courteous, just a picture of domestic bliss. And if you stop and think about it, what's the oldest motive in the book? Money. They always, anytime there's a murder investigation, you got to even see if they, what's the motive? Is it money? Right? Is it money? Well, if you think about it, Alex tried to have himself killed for money purposes to go to his son. And so, did they have life insurance? According to the attorney, they didn't have any insurance. They didn't have any life insurance on Maggie and Paul. And so, truth is, getting to the truth of all this will be a challenge. There is no doubt there will be a challenge. And so, let's talk about the next interesting surrounding case, or should I say interesting death surrounding Alex Murdaugh. And so investigators were attempting to untangle some evidence in the double murders. They came across another case with a connection to the Murdaughs, the mysterious death of Stephen Smith. This is Stephen here. And Stephen, young kid. And so 15 days after the murders of Maggie and Paul, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Department made a big announcement. It had found information while investigating the double murders that led the agency to open a new investigation into this old case, the death of the 19-year-old Stephen Smith. Who is Stephen Smith? Stephen was a young man living in the Hampton County. He even had a twin sister. He was openly gay, well liked. He attended the same high school as Buster Murdaugh. They were in the same class, but traveled in different circles. Neither friends nor enemies, they just went their own way. And after college, Buster went to college to study government and international affairs. Stephen went to a community college to pursue his dream of becoming a nurse. And all of those dreams for Stephen Smith came to a halt on a 2-lane country road sometime in the early hours of July 8th of 2015. And right now, no one really knows what happens. Everything is based on rumors and speculation. A passerby calls 911, and the 911, of course, where's your emergency? And the caller says, I see somebody laying out. And the 911 dispatch says, and it is on the road or on the side of the road? And the caller says, he is in the roadway. Somebody's going to hit him. It's dark. Stephen Smith, rest in peace, Stephen. Rest in peace, Maggie Murdaugh. Rest in peace, Paul Murdaugh. Stephen Smith was found dead at the scene from blunt force trauma to the head. That's murder. And so Stephen's yellow Chevy was found roughly 3 miles away. Roughly 3 miles away. And so initial reports by the South Carolina Highway Patrol said Stephen ran into car trouble and was likely walking when he was struck and killed by a vehicle. That can cause blunt force trauma. And so, but recently released audio interviews show some officers on the case did not agree with that hit and run. One trooper said nothing at the scene appeared that it was a vehicle accident. That same trooper, he said he walked both shoulders of the highway, east and west, looking for any evidence and didn't see anything that appeared to be vehicular involved. There was no vehicle debris, no broken headlight or paint scrapes or anything. I mean, if they would hit him that hard, I would think there'd be something left over. I mean, should be a car paint on him or something. I don't know. But when someone is hit by a car, they're very frequently knocked out of their shoes. Stephen Smith's shoes were still on him when he was found. Even when I got hit by a car, my shoe was gone. I literally never found that shoe. I remember even looking for that shoe. And so, Stephen's mother, she truly believes that she didn't believe it was a hit and run scenario either. And Sandy Smith, his mother, says the only damage to his body was his head. From his right eye socket to the back of his head, his right shoulder was dislocated. When someone is struck by a car going at speeds, I don't know. I don't mean It could be 25, 30, 35. You fly, bodies get pushed a long way. The body rolls and moves, and there's road burn, there's rash marks, there's evidence often on the road. And so, it didn't have all that. And Sandy Smith, she told the newspaper she believed her son was murdered. She believed it was a hate crime related in some way to his sexuality. And if anybody knows anything, they want some answers. Give them some answers. Now, again, this is just her feelings. It doesn't mean that she's right. Could very well be a hate crime. Could be another reason that they're trying to hide it. But now they've opened this investigation up again since this double murder of the mom and son. And so, the trooper Todd Proctor, he spent months talking to Stephen's friends, family, and possible love interests, trying to get answers. And so he's talked to like 9 different people easily. And so hopefully someone's going to talk. In recorded audio interviews, one name kept coming up over and over again. Stephen's sister Stephanie heard that name multiple times. Stephen's twin sister, and she tells this to the South Carolina Highway Patrol. I went into the store and a bunch of people kept coming up to me and said, "Hey, do you know the Murdaugh boys are behind it?" Again, it could be speculation, could be very well true. Need some proof. Need some proof, people. Now that Alex is in trouble, let's get it done. If they really have something to do with this, let's get it done. And so, no one has ever been named a suspect in the murder, in the murder case. And of course, the Murdaugh family attorney has not responded to requests for comments on the Smith case. And so, the Smith family attorney, now they said that the focus on the Murdaugh family may be unfounded. There are suspects we have in sight that are unconnected to Murdaugh. So he may or may not be, but the whole purpose around this is another death tied to the Murdaughs that is surrounding Alex Murdaugh. And so we only hope to find out more, but the pathologist, he said that this blunt head trauma that killed Stephen could have possibly come from contact with the side view mirror of a passing truck. And so, the former trooper Todd Proctor, he told Fox News that he didn't believe it then and he doesn't believe it now. He says it looked like it was more staged, like possibly the body had been placed in the roadway to make it look like that. And so the case was never solved and went cold until the house of Murdaugh came crumbling down, one brick at a time. And so, that's why this is called the Murdaugh Mysteries. This whole thing surrounding him is called the Murdaugh Mysteries. And the next one up that you've heard me talk about is the Housekeeper. And this was ruled an accident, but no one truly believes it. Not even her family. And so on September 6th of this year, 2021, 2 days after being shot, Alex Murdaugh found himself once again in the front page when he stunned the world by releasing this particular statement. I have made a lot of decisions that I truly regret, and that's when he said he's leaving the law firm because things were coming out. Things were coming out and they didn't want to be tied to him. And Alex Murdaugh, now he's saying that he was addicted to opioids for 2 decades. And apparently this was a surprise to many. And so, to think that a 20-year-old serious opioid addiction does not seem consistent with Alex Murdaugh's successful practice as an attorney. Well, who knows? And so now Murdaugh's been accused of stealing millions from his own law firm, and he was asked to resign before he was shot. And that's when he had himself shot shortly after that resignation. And so the law firm had a come to Jesus moment with Alex, and they said, "We know you're allegedly stealing money. You're out." And then the following day, the reported shooting. And then 2 days later, Alex releases a statement saying, "I'm going into rehab." And when he comes out of rehab, he's arrested for insurance fraud for his housekeeper that you see on here. And then came the news about why Murdaugh had allegedly hired Curtis Smith. He says it was to make his suicide look like murder so his son Buster could collect a $10 million insurance payout. His only surviving son. So my guess is he had some guilt. He was ready to end his life, and he wanted to leave his son some money. I mean, I would think he'd still be taken care of, but I don't understand all that. And so he did not know whether his life insurance would be paid out in the event of a suicide, so he didn't want to go kill himself. And he's a lawyer, so he's perfectly capable of reading his life insurance policy, but I don't know, like he should have known whether that was true or not. And so Murdaugh's confession sent Curtis Smith to jail for 2 days until he posted a $55,000 bond for his alleged role in the shooting. And he's fined another $5,000 for possession of methamphetamine found in his home when he was arrested. And basically they arrested Curtis Smith based on what Alex Murdaugh said. Alex Murdaugh called him that day to help with a flat tire. When he arrived, Smith says he found a desperate man holding a gun. Interesting. I mean, interesting, right? This is what Curtis Smith says. He says when he pulls up, he's standing there with it like this, points his finger like a gun out in front of him, and he said, you got to take care of this. And I said, well, I can't do it. And he told me he turned his head. I just grabbed his arm, put it behind his head, took the gun from him. Smith says the gun went off in the struggle, but he managed to take it from Alex and dispose of it. Then he got out of there as fast as he could. And when asked, why did you leave the scene of the crime? Curtis says, I didn't know anything else to do. He was alive. And even a passerby who was driving by saw there was something going on, but it didn't look like it was something to worry about, which is weird, right? Someone passing by sees that, doesn't think much of it because it didn't look, it looked more like they were planning something. And so, Curtis says he was alive and the gun was out of his hand and that was his goal. You would think that he would just call the police, call someone, and so, really when you think about it, Alex Murdaugh is the police. They feel like he's so powerful, he gets away with everything. He's a prosecutor. And so he said he didn't report anything because there was no crime. He saved his life. And so on September 16 of this year, facing charges of insurance fraud, conspiracy, and filing a false police report, Alex Murdaugh turned himself in. No plea has been entered yet. And so that's why we've seen him in handcuffs. We've seen him in a jumpsuit. And so, for many, that's new. And so despite the serious charges against him, he was released on $20,000 bond. And he was allowed to go back to rehab in Florida. And so while he's there, the police are looking into all of his business dealings when the list of missing money and suspicious deaths start orbiting around Alex Murdaugh's world. And it just grew longer. And now the housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, rest in peace, Gloria Satterfield. And Gloria was the housekeeper for the Murdaugh family for more than 20 years. More than 20 years. And according to the Satterfield attorney, the family attorney, she literally helped raise Alex Murdaugh's son, Paul and Buster. And in 2018, she died after a trip and fall accident at the Murdaugh estate. The very same property Maggie and Paul would be found dead in 2021. See, this is why this is so odd around this whole thing. This is so odd around this whole thing. Right? And what was reported was that she was at the house that day on the front steps. And apparently a dog got a little rambunctious and gave her a push and she fell down the stairs. Come on. Right? Come on. And so back then, Satterfield's death was not questioned because of this powerful Alex Murdaugh. All he had to do was speak and they listened. And so they ruled this natural death. Her death was ruled natural and no autopsy was ever performed. And if you really stop and think about it, what's natural about a 57-year-old woman falling down a flight of steps and dying from head trauma? What's natural about that? I don't even know what's natural about that. And at Gloria's funeral, Murdaugh did something very odd. He recommended Satterfield's sons file a wrongful death lawsuit against himself. So Alex, talking to the Satterfield's kids, says, you guys should file a wrongful death lawsuit against me. And Alex even steered them toward an attorney. And at this time, I don't think anyone knew, but this was a friend of his former college roommate and Paul Murdaugh's godfather, Corey Fleming. You see, I mean, this is where it's like, this is odd. This is odd in many ways. Alex, I'm not buying that she died of accident in this one. I'm not sold on you being the killer or responsible for your wife and son's death. More to come on that. But this one, I'm not sold on. I believe you know more than this. And so a lot of trust was placed in both Alex and in Corey to do the right things. And it really went south right from the get-go. And court documents show that $4.3 million payout by Alex Murdaugh's insurance company, but none of the money ever went to the family of Gloria Satterfield, which was the original plan. File a wrongful death lawsuit against me, and you can have the money. But they never got the money. So I don't know if, I mean, that sounds legit, really. Like, hey, file a wrongful death suit against me. I don't know how that was going to get paid. Maybe he's got insurance as an attorney or something like that. Or insurance on his property. That's most likely it. So he probably already had this plan. This sounds like something you could truly plan out, honestly. And so, where did that $4.3 million go? It went into Alex Murdaugh's pocket. The family never saw it. They never saw a dime. And so now, in September, they opened up a criminal investigation into her death and the handling of her estate. On October 14th, another twist in Alex Murdaugh case. The new criminal charges that they're facing, he's facing 2 new felony charges for his alleged role in this insurance fraud. And of course, No plea yet has been entered, but this time a judge ordered Alex Murdaugh to be held in jail without bond. And so he's been in the Richland County Jail since October 16th. As of today, about 2 weeks. And meanwhile, the investigation into Maggie and Paul Murdaugh are still ongoing. And so you really can't rule out Alex Murdaugh as a suspect at all. And the family of Mallory Beach hope Murdaugh is investigated for obstruction of justice in the investigation into Murdaugh's death. I wish the guy would just come clean and just freaking say it all and spend the rest of your life in prison and bring peace to everybody. Seriously. Just let everyone know, write your book, do whatever, move on. Seriously. That's what I believe he should do. That's exactly what I believe he should do. And so, hopefully the lawsuit will be settled so people can get on with their lives. Because Mallory died now, almost 3 years ago? And every time they talk about the story, it's like it's just happening over and over and over again. Right? I mean, you only hope that there can be some justice for this family. My friends, that's what I have for you today. Those are the five deaths that are surrounding Alex Murdaugh. And it's an ongoing case. And more keeps coming out. So definitely stay close to that news or stay close to Deep True Crime. Make sure that you smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. That way, when I do upload content, videos, you will get notified. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have an amazing day. Today is actually Halloween here in the States, and I don't really celebrate, even though you probably think I'm an owl today. Nope, I don't really celebrate. It just looks kind of crazy. But anyway, have a great day. I look forward to serving you